Curry makes a shitload of money. LeBron James makes a shitload of money. But relative to the amount of money that the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors makes every year, they are still underpaid.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Bradley Alsop is a producer on the Emma Sports Vigeland Network, ESVN, and we're going to talk to him about some sports stuff. Adam is definitely more the sports guy than I am. Super Bowl's tomorrow, right?
Yes, I may have heard that.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's a big football game happening tomorrow.
I
Two
literally...
teams, by the way, 2 teams are playing.
2 teams.
Yeah.
I literally forgot that the Super Bowl was happening, and yesterday I asked Adam if he could like do an interview for a story on Sunday. I was like, hey, could you talk to these people on Sunday and maybe write up an article for us? And then I remembered, oh yeah, he's going to be watching the Super Bowl. He's going to be incapacitated all day and the next day probably.
Nah, not these days.
But
a few years ago, yes, but maybe not. Maybe not these days.
So Bradley Alsop, appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this morning.
Yes, of course. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. Apologies for all of the wrangling. I know I've been trying to come on for a few months, so I appreciate you guys taking the time as well. I'm very excited to talk to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Love when you call into the show, Jacob, on the Majority Report, and I'm very excited to be speaking with you both today.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, and so the first thing is, I guess, is that, I know that you are, you're kind of close to Emma because of your working on the show together. And so do you have an idea of like how much money she gets from the Hump Day royalties? I don't know if you know this, Adam, but Emma coined the phrase Hump Day, and she's able to get royalties every time someone says that. Are you aware of like what the level of that income is for her?
My NDA is stronger than the ones Jimmy Dore.
Okay.
So I am a locked box for many reasons, and I can't disclose that financial information.
Okay. Well, no, understand that, because I'm just asking because I wanted to try to get an idea of how much we're going to be able to get out of her in our lawsuit against ESVN for taking our second half of the program name, because we have been having overtime on our program. The second half of our show has been overtime for like a year and a half, for like 2 years, and y'all are just coming out here pretending like you came up with this name. And so I'm just trying to figure out like how much money we can get out of you for this copyright infringement and patent infringement.
That I'm gonna have to speak with our high-powered group of lawyers now, and probably mysteriously drop off this call as well. I might be going through a tunnel in my apartment. But yeah, actually, it's so funny. I apologies for any inadvertent fabulism there on our end, but a good pal of our show, Zeke Gonzalez, who does a lot of clipping of our show, he suggested it to us early on. We were like, yeah, that's a sports thing. That's that could be something to use as our second show. But I'll have to when I return to the smoke-filled room that I sit in with a bunch of cigar chomping executives and with the Majority Report, we'll have to do some thinking about how to make things right for you guys.
Yeah, confer with the legal team.
We'll confer. We'll talk to our people. You talk to your people,
right?
And we'll talk again later offline. The first thing that Adam wanted to put to you is that we're that we're like a union show, and so for labor folks, for left folks who are not sports fans like me, what's the relevance of sports, I guess, for folks like us?
Yeah, I think the big thing that people have to realize that when it comes to kind of the intersection of sports and labor is and at least the idea of like why should you be interested when to people who are not very much immersed in the sports world, it's like, what am I concerned about guys who get paid millions of dollars to put on a uniform and play a sport with a ball, like put a ball in a basket, or like throw a ball to another guy. And like, I think that's like reducing it, or especially reducing it in terms of like what people might actually consider when they're talking about like sports in a more broader political in the more of a broader political spectrum than just, you know, wins and losses, like, and that and things like that are related to just sports itself. Like, I think that's a big mission of our show, of ESPN, beyond just like our passion for the sports and the games themselves, is to basically answer the question that you have, which is that when you actually maximize these things a little bit more, you can see players as workers. You can see ownership and front office structures as bosses, and you can see how that value from those players, that work, that being in front of a crowd, selling tickets, selling concessions, selling snacks, selling drinks, all of that stuff, that's labor being extracted from the players and the workers for these teams. And the biggest share, the largest share of the pie, goes to the people who don't do anything but have the money to funnel into it. If you think about ownership structures in any of the 4 major sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL, these are essentially for bad teams. Just as one example, it's the equivalent of a robber baron, private equity vulture type guy or group owning a distressed asset, making passive income by doing nothing. Right. And the people who are actually doing the work, who are actually creating the value for these teams and these franchises and these literal LLCs that are, you know, the Denver Broncos, the Atlanta Hawks, whoever they may be, are not the people making the majority of the money, are not the people with the majority of the shares. And so you can really easily see parallels when you watch sports and you drill down a little bit further into that, how much a lot of people when the sausage gets made are materially exploited. And
right.
And it's hard to parse this or fathom this when you know that a guy like LeBron, it is hard to make the case that I've made to a lot of people, because it seems kind of absurd to be like, Steph Curry makes a shitload of money. Can I curse on here? Is that okay?
Yeah. We're off of the FM radio. Okay, cool. No FCC censorship.
Like, Steph Curry makes a shitload of money. LeBron James makes a shitload of money. But relative to the amount of money that the Los Angeles Lakers or the Golden State Warriors makes every year, they are still underpaid. Right. They are still not making a proportionate share of the value that they actually bring to their teams. And so I understand that it seems like almost like small grapes to be like, oh, I mean, they're still making millions of dollars. Right. But that doesn't mean that there's not a guy up there. Don't get mad at LeBron James. Get mad at who owns the Lakers. Right. Like, get mad at the people who are hoarding the money, who don't do anything for it. All they do, their job is just ponying up the money. So they don't Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
No, well, and I mean, that's exactly right. And then, you know, we have the workers, you know, the workers should have the value that they create. And then if we think that there are some workers who make so much value that maybe they don't need all of that, then we can tax it, right? We can just take it as a society and redistribute it. But the idea that I should be opposed to LeBron making more money is so silly, because there's somebody above him who's not doing anything to make the Los Angeles Lakers a valuable team, is even making more than him. So yeah, totally. And then also there's the thing that, which I think that these sports bosses, they love this idea, because they're kind of in the shadows and people really don't think about them as much. And they think about LeBron James, who's a millionaire, and some of the one or two of these people are even getting into the $1 billion billionaire type folks. But then there's also, you know, lots of people like backbenchers for these teams that are not making millions of dollars a year. Maybe they're making $1 million a year. And especially when you're talking about the NFL, the amount of damage that you're going to do to yourself, you know, as a low-level backbencher, fourth string, you know, whatever, you know, you're just doing fine, and you will just be doing fine for the rest of your life. And, you know, you're going to hopefully, even as a low-level, you know, NFL player, you're going to be able to retire on that, and that's going to be your career. You'll have a few years of, and then you'll be fairly comfortable. But that's, you know, they're not extravagantly wealthy, a lot of these people. And then especially even more, that's still the case when you're looking at the big leagues. Some of these professional athletes aren't just extravagantly wealthy, But even more than that, when you go down to the minor leagues, like we just talked to last week or the week before, the United Football League, the USFL, United States Football League, they're a minor league football team, and those players are only going to be making $60,000 a year, right? Which is fine for 3 months of work, but also it's like, you're putting your body on a lot of risk for $60,000 a year. And then, you're talking, when you think about the minor league baseball players making $11,000 a year, some of these people, and how fit they have to stay, how much practice they have to do all year for $11,000 is just, people do not really have a proper understanding of professional sports as a job, I don't think.
Because, and it's a great point, both in terms of the NFL and the minor league system. And I mean, pre, of course, we can get into this as well. And pre a lot of the introduction of name, image, and likeness laws for college athletes, those certain areas were some of the most pernicious examples of like labor exploitation in sports, minor league sports, the NFL in particular, because relative to the physical cost of being a football player, and the fact that many, if not all, at least a lion's share of non-premier tier NFL contracts are mostly non-guaranteed money. So in the NBA, it's different even for lesser players, and by lesser I just mean guys who are not in the top 20, top 30 players in the league. That money that they're getting is guaranteed. If they get injured, they're still getting a paycheck. If they don't meet a games threshold, they're still getting a paycheck. If you're a guy, if you're like a second string linebacker or a lower tier draft choice for a team in the NFL, if you get injured, there potentially will be stipulations and clauses in your contract where you're not getting paid for those games. You have to be healthy. You have to make sure that your body does not get destroyed in a game that is designed to destroy your body to play in order to make money. And that's happening in the biggest league in American sports that year in and year out prints money that makes billions of dollars in revenue, that squeezes every last buck out of every last initiative game, whatever the case may be. And there are guys on these teams that are essentially sometimes in the locker room or whatever, getting shots of Toradol right before the game so they can play through a sprained ankle. And so they can get their game check. Right. It is such a good point to bring up the people who you might forget about when you think of these leagues and you think of the top players. There are a lot of people on a 53-man roster across 32 teams in the NFL who need to be taken care of, and a lot of them aren't. And especially the other thing is, the average stint in the NFL, the average tenure for a garden variety NFL player is about 2 to 3 years. Some of these guys come in the league. They're 21 to 23 years old. Everything that they've been trained to do, sometimes they're out of a job at 25. That's a lot of years left to figure out what you're doing with the rest of your life. Right. And it's not guaranteed, and it's not particularly robust of a guarantee that the National Football League is going to make sure that you're on your feet for the rest of your life after what you gave to their game, to the owner's game, to Roger Goodell's game, for that 50 to 60 years after, when you're not valuable to the NFL anymore. And it's not. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, well, and
it's not just how much they give to the NFL in that short 2 to 3 year window that they come in, and then they're out of a job, and then they got to figure out what they're going to do for the 70 years left in their life, the 50 years, maybe more like 50 if you played football your whole life, right?
Absolutely.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.